The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Got an interesting show tonight. I told you that it would be. We had a video that I posted a couple of days ago asking you what the biggest storyline heading into trading camp for you was. We're going to get to those comments tonight. Tonight will be the first in what will be about a series of 4 live streams that will feature statistics, baseline numbers that Washington needs to hit this year in order to have a chance to be successful. Now, they could exceed these numbers, and that would bode well for us. But at a bare minimum, these are the numbers that they need to hit. This is part 1 of offense. There will be part 2 of the offense next week, and then we will go to the defensive side of the football. And we will talk about numbers that need to be hit there, what the significance of these numbers are, why they are important, etc., etc. So we will get to that a little bit later on in the show tonight. But before we do that, I want to give a quick shout out. Let me pull something up real quick. Let me give a quick shout out to Fitz. Fitz blessed me on CashApp, and I just want to send a quick shout out to Fitz. Thank you for the donation. And for all of you out there, if you want to donate to the Louie T Network, continue to help power this movement, there are several ways that you can do that. CashApp and PayPal are among the other ways that you can. Those links are down in the description of this video and all the videos that I do. So just keep that in mind as well. I want to send a big shout out to Fitz. And also, while I'm at it, I want to also send a massive shout out to all of those who support on Patreon. That is another way that you can support the Louie T Network. And a lot of you have been supporting for quite some time. And I want to thank you for that as well. So with that said, let's just jump straight into the biggest camp storylines, because I want to read as many of these that are pertinent as possible. I want to thank everybody who participated in this exercise, because only 50 some odd comments, over 3,000 people watched. So I want to thank those of you who took the time out and gave a comment. I really, truly appreciate you. So with that said, I want to read as many of these as possible. And we start with, let's go to the bottom and work our way up. Start with the people who got to the video first. So Jordan Like the GOAT writes, my storyline is simple. Chase or Montez. I think that is an excellent storyline. To me, that one, I don't know if it takes a backseat to any outside of the quarterback position. I mean, the offensive line is huge, but I think one of the more juicy storylines is Chase or Montez. And again, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It could be, and I've laid out scenarios, and there are others that I haven't, laid out for you that could involve both of them being back next year. So it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other, but the likelihood is that it is one or the other. And I think everyone goes into camp kind of really saying, what are we going to get out of Chase? Because there's the rookie season Chase, and then there's the second season Chase, and they couldn't have been 2 more different players. One was wildly impactful and seemed to make big plays at every turn. The other was non-existent in the pass game. Was still dominant in the run game, but non-existent. So I think Tez, I've said this already, you know where I stand. I think Tez is going to be this year's Daron Payne. I think he's the one that's set for the breakout. He's been steadily improving. He's been putting up solid numbers. He's been close, just like Daron was. This is the year that he finally hits home, 12 or 13 times, cements his status among the better pass rushers in the league, and gets paid because of it. But again, we will see. Chase may have something to say about that as well. But I think that is a great storyline. And I know that's not the last time we're going to hear that. Quentin Ruiz, right? So my storyline is who's going to settle in the starting secondary spots. I don't know if we should make too much of that, Quentin, because we know Kendall Fuller is going to be outside at one of the cornerback spots. My assumption is Emmanuel Forbes, you didn't draft him in the first round for him to play anywhere else other than boundary corner. So I expect those to be your two starting outside corners. The real question comes inside, right? When they go to their base nickel, right? Who's playing that base slot receiver position, all right, or slot nickel position? Obviously, we know they have the Buffalo nickel, and one of the safeties is probably going to handle that responsibility. Maybe it's a corner. You don't know which is which. I'm anxious to see Percy Butler. Obviously, Quan Martin is another name. And then Benjamin St. Juice. You can't forget about Juice, right? That's where it gets a little interesting for me, a little dicey. And again, it's a great problem to have, but that's where it gets interesting. So I'm kind of anxious to see what they decide to do there. Let's see. We got another one here from Doofenshmirtz EI, who writes, I need to see if this offensive line can hold up for Sam. The offensive line will make the most change to our win-loss record, in my opinion. As our recent history points to, if we fall apart offensively, particularly due to injuries from tackle to tackle, we often discuss what our seasons could have been with a healthy offensive line to help the offense thrive and keep our nasty defense fresh throughout games. Our defense is like a special move, the haymaker added to the damage our offense should be producing, and I believe it starts up front, just as our defense did when we put our defensive line together. So he essentially wants to see the offensive line and how it comes together. Can it be a cohesive unit? Can it stay healthy? A lot of times, the better performing offensive lines are the ones that don't have a lot of change throughout the course of the year. There'll be one or two teams who do a magnificent job of mix and matching pieces throughout the season, and the offensive line coach gets a ton of credit, or the offensive coordinator gets a ton of credit for adjusting to some of the inefficiencies of the offensive line due to injuries, whatever the case may be. But for the most part, the teams that have a ton of success offensively, who don't give up a ton of sacks, who run the football effectively, usually have a group that doesn't change very much throughout the course of the year. And you see that often. You hear this, you get to week 15 and you say, hey, this is the same unit that has been starting all year long, and they've only not played 3 snaps together. That's the kind of stuff you want to hear, right? We don't get that here in Washington. So, yeah, that's going to be a big one for sure. Video Channel writes, I want to see more ways in using Gibson, especially as a wide receiver. So, Antonio Gibson is really interesting because we talk so much about Montez Sweat, Chase Young, and Cam Curl, and all these guys that are up for contracts next year. We don't talk about Gibson, but he's in a contract year as well. And this is a massive year. Curtis Samuel is another guy we talk about. Will he be back next year? Gibson is on a contract year. All right. He's in a contract year. What happens with him? this season is going to go a long way in determining will he be playing his football next year elsewhere or will he be playing it here? And how do they utilize him? You know, we've been waiting on Antonio Gibson, the weapon. All right. You know, when he was first drafted, that's what we were sold. We were sold a bill of goods as of right now, because they tried to convert him to running back, and they told us the first 2 years, we really just want to focus on him being a running back. And then they were supposed to unleash him in year 3. That didn't happen last year, you know, and some of that was because they were a little timid because of the fumbling issue he had in his second season. But we were supposed to see more of the weapon Antonio Gibson last year because he was no longer the bell cow starting running back. That job was taken from him and given to the rookie and Brian Robinson. And so he was supposed to be the guy that caught it out of the backfield, the guy that they split out, the guy that was returning kicks and being dynamic, the guy that they were getting the football to out in space. We didn't see that enough. So I do think that is a big storyline, one that I think kind of gets swept under the rug. We don't talk about it enough. Mr. Pink says, writes, okay, so look, I think the storyline I will be watching the most is going to be whether or not Logan Thomas is the answer at TE1. Obviously, in camp, there's an open competition, and I just think Cole is different this year and will push Logan. Mainly, I'm interested in this storyline along with the EB hire because I can't, for the life of me, understand why so many fans don't have any expectations or chalk him up to simply being unproven as an OC. This man has been to 3 Super Bowls in the last 4 years and won 2 of them. To me, there isn't a shadow of a doubt that if Sam takes the coaching, we will be as explosive as the Chiefs, and that's why I wanted Kincaid so badly, and I'm sure EB did too. This time, we should have no doubts or anxiety, as you put it, about how he will call games or push our players. I'm confident we will make a run this season, and regardless of what new ownership is thinking, this is EB's year to show the world his role in those Super Bowl appearances was massive. I'm looking forward to the preseason game against the Ravens. I'll be back home in Bowie with my grandfather for that game, first time being back in about 3 years. Should be a lot of fun at the clubs in Baltimore later that night. Also, side storyline, Jahan Dotson's health. Will he make it through camp stronger with no flare-ups in the hamstrings? We shall see. So his biggest storyline is the tight end position, and a close second or 1A, 1B would be Eric Bieniemy's impact. And I mean, obviously EB's impact can't be overstated. I mean, hell, I think that's the thing that most people have gotten excited about and are anxious to see what it actually looks like. We have no idea what this offense is. And again, you can kind of put some of the pieces of the puzzle together. He's already told us it's a West Coast scheme, so you can kind of use your imagination and, you know, figure out sort of what this offense is going to look like. You can look at some of the Chiefs film, and you can kind of see some of the things that they want to do schematically. So it's not hard to kind of deduce what this offense is going to look like. It's just a matter of how does he call a game? You know, how does he set things up? Because the Chiefs are among the best in the league at setting things up. You know, they throw a screen, a wide receiver screen early in the game, pump that same wide receiver screen, 2 quarters later and go up top, and everybody bites. You know, they set those types of things up. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to put those things together. But his number one is 1A was the tight end position. And a lot of people were screaming about wanting Washington to draft a tight end to upgrade that position. And his reasoning for that was simply, this is a tight end friendly offense, which Eric Bieniemy has already stated. It's a tight end friendly offense. And because of that, you want to have a supremely gifted, tight end or a talent there. And he's not sure that exists here. And he's hoping that Cole Turner or someone, or even Logan Thomas. And we've heard reports that Logan Thomas is back to his 2020 form, which If that's the case, that's great news for us. Again, he was never the most athletically gifted. That was never his thing. But Cole Turner is definitely athletically gifted enough to make a difference. And we'll see what the tight end position, like if the offensive line is fine, the only real question marks from a skill set position on the offensive side of the football, minus quarterback, obviously, would be tight end. We're not worried about the running backs. We're not worried about the receivers. You know, I'm not worried about quarterback, but, you know, a lot of people are, and you should be. You know, you probably shouldn't have as much confidence as I have, right, in Sam Howell. But tight end is one of those positions where we got nothing out of it, but I don't think that was solely because of the tight ends just not being good enough. I really, truly believe that was a byproduct of Scott Turner simply just not utilizing them enough. So I think and again, Logan Thomas wasn't really healthy until, you know, the latter half of the season. So I think you're going to see an uptick in production from that position in particular this year. That's my guess. And I think Logan Thomas is going to lead the charge. But again, we will see. C. Jackson writes, my biggest question going into training camp, do we have a solid offensive line? Did we do enough to improve? Do we need to sign another vet? Are our guards good enough? Do we have a NFL starter at left guard? Is Sadiq Charles going to step up and take advantage of this opportunity? Is Cosme going to transition well? How does Chris Paul look? The offensive line, particularly the interior of that line, does raise a lot of questions, and specifically the guards, because I'm not even worried about center. All right. And I know some people are like, hey, Giants didn't want him. Giants didn't have a great offensive line. Why are you so confident in Nick Gates? I'm just confident in Nick Gates because I know he's a good football player. And Giants fans, to a man, have said, hey, he's a good football player. He's tough as nails, hell of a leader. You're going to love him. Enough said. I don't need to hear anything else. I trust when the opposition tells you, hey, you got a real one, that's good enough for me, right? But I've watched Nick Gates play. I know he's fully capable, so I'm not really worried about center. It's guard. That's the position. I know some of you are uneasy about left tackle, specifically Charles Leno Jr., and I get that. He's not terrible. You can do a lot worse than Charles Leno. I've already stressed that. You can do a lot worse than him at left tackle. You can do a lot better than him as well, but you can do a lot worse. And he's going to be fine. The biggest issue, and Andrew Wiley, same thing. You can do a lot better than Andrew Wiley. You can do a lot worse than Andrew Wiley. He's going to be fine. It's the two guards. And I'm not even really worried about Cosme as much as the left guard. I think Cosme will be fine if he can just stay healthy. That's his thing, right? I'm worried about left guard. Period. That's really what I'm worried about. So I think that's the one position we'll be all kind of zeroing in on as camp gets underway. Who's kind of taking we know Sadiq Charles is going to get the first chance, right? He's going to get the first at bat at the plate at left guard. And if he does what he's supposed to do, he'll be the starting left guard. If he doesn't, or if he finds a way to not stay healthy again, then Chris Paul will get a shot at it. My thing is, what if neither one of these guys are really, overwhelming at the position? Then what? Do they have enough gumption to make the change in camp before we get to the regular season? Or are they going to do us like they did last year and just kind of bury their head in the sand and just say, oh, hey, they'll be better once the regular season starts? Because I know they had to see that Andrew Norwell looked compromised. And we already knew Trey Turner was injured going into the season. He missed most of camp. So they had to know that we were already compromised at both guard positions going into the season, and they ignored it pretty much. So this year, are they going to be able to say, you know what, neither one of these guys are it? Let's start moving some things around. Or are they just going to roll with one of them no matter what? And again, let's hope it doesn't even come to that. Let's just hope that one of them knocks it out of the park and we can just move on. That's the hope. But again, we will see. Blake Taylor writes, will our offensive line be stable enough for our offense to excel this year? 2, how dynamic can EB make this wide receiver, tight end, running back room? Proving or team has specialists at those positions? He says, 3, can our defense stand up to better quarterback play from opposing teams? I think with the cornerback and D-line, we can really explode, having better depth than last year, and linebackers showing more flashes this year. So number 1 for him is, will the offensive line be stable enough? That's a great one. If I were making a list, I think that would be at the top of my list, because you know how I feel about Sam. And in my mind, Sam, it won't be any worse than what we've had at the quarterback position in the last 3 years. He won't be. So at a bare minimum, at a working baseline, Sam's going to play as well as Heineke played for us last year, or the year before that, or the year before that, when it was a combination of Haskins, Smith, and Allen, right? Like, he's going to meet that criteria. So I'm not too concerned with Sam not just meeting that baseline. So my biggest concern is the offensive line, because if Sam doesn't meet that baseline, I think a lot of that will be because the offensive line was absolutely hideous. But I can't see the offensive line being hideous. They've made too many moves, and they've upgraded the athleticism. It's just a better group overall. They're not old and decrepit like they were last year. So it's a mobile group. It's a physical group. It's an aggressive group. This is one of the more aggressive offensive lines that we've had in probably in the last 7 or 8 years. I think we're going to be fine. Again, the answer is, can we solidify the guard spot, specifically left guard? How dynamic can EB make the wide receiver, tight end, and running back rooms? Look, again, how he is able to utilize the skill positions that we have, because I've already said, I'll put our receivers up against anybody's in the league. We may not win, but I'm not afraid to put our guys up against anybody's in the league. The running back room, we've got a really solid duo. It's not the best in the league, but I think it's top 10 in the league. It's probably top 7 in the league in terms of running back duos, but somewhere in that mix, right? And then, the tight end position, that's a big question mark for me. But unlike 2020, where I was like totally unsold on the entire position, including Logan Thomas, if you tell me Logan's healthy and he looks good, then I'm going to believe that, and I can run with that, because he's shown me when he's healthy, he can produce. So we'll see what happens there. And then, can our defense stand up to better quarterback play from opposing teams? That's a massive question. That's actually a really good one, Blake, because, again, a lot of people just assume, oh, the defense is fine. The defense is good. They were really good last year. We were one of the best teams in the league on third downs last year. And I'm just here to tell you, we didn't play a very dynamic group of quarterbacks last year. And I'll tell you that there was a lot of plays left on the field against our defense, and it wasn't because our defense did anything extraordinary either. So, like I said, there's a lot that you could kind of take into consideration there. Michael Hinton, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the comment. Michael writes, Sam Howell is the most important storyline. If he is what I think he is, we're on our way. Look, to me, if you don't believe in Sam, that's your number one storyline. If you don't believe in Sam, how could it not be your number one storyline? Because, again, we're only going to go as far as Sam takes us. As we've seen the past couple of years, the quarterback position has definitely held us back. And, Heineke's had his moments, but at the end of the day, he's also thrown us out of games or missed open opportunities. Last year, I think about the first Giants game. There was no reason for the Giants to even be in that game. We dominated them in that first quarter, and the score should have probably been 14 or 17 to nothing instead of just 10. We left points on the scoreboard. And if not for Terry making a great catch on a third down on a shallow cross, a one-handed catch and then breaking a tackle and scoring a touchdown, it's probably only 6-0. That was not a great throw. So Heinicke, he played well at times, but he was also destructive, right? And it wasn't all the offensive line either. So I really, truly believe Sam Howell is going to be the difference offensively for us. And you've got to believe that if you don't buy into Sam yet, then that has to be the biggest storyline heading into training camp. Let's see. Abdul Walton writes, can Jack make this defensive line or can Jack make this defense live up to expectations? 2, can the offense truly become a weapon for the team? And 3, what do we have if our offensive tackles get hurt? Jack having this defense live up to expectations, that's interesting because I think if you ask most people, Jack's done a pretty good job with the defense. Last year, we went from one of the worst units on third downs to one of the better units. And honestly speaking, the defense kept us in ball games last year, even when the offense wasn't very good. The Bears game is a great example of that. The offense wasn't good at all in that game. And sure, the Bears contributed. They turned the ball over. They missed opportunities. So they definitely helped. But the defense kept us in a ball game we had no business even being in the first place, right? And you could look at a plethora of other games. The Vikings were a high-octane offense, and that defense gave us every opportunity to win that football game. The offense just wasn't very good that day. Frankly, if not for a down screen set by the official, we probably don't ever lead in that game. I mean, we were up 17-7 with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter and thinking about, wow, this could be a 4-game win streak, right? Obviously, that was all for naught. We blew that. But we wouldn't have even been in that position if that official doesn't set the down screen. That's a pick. He threw that thing into triple coverage. So the defense was outstanding against Minnesota. And I could go on and on. The Green Bay game, we tried to give that game away offensively. Heinicke threw a pick 6. He had a fumble, scoop, and score that was negated due to a penalty. He could have thrown at least 3 other picks in that first half. It was a shit show in the first half. And the defense gave us a fighting chance. And we ultimately pulled it out because the defense fought and gave us a shot. All right. So, again, I mean, the Eagles game, the second Eagles game. How the first Eagles game? That's a 0-0 game going into the second quarter, okay? It's a 0-0. The Eagles hadn't done a damn thing. They scored all 24 points that they scored in that game. Now, they did it quickly and expeditiously, right? In short order in one quarter, which you can't allow to happen. But they didn't score a single point the other 3 quarters of the game. What did the offense do? Nothing. For 4 quarters, okay? Nothing. If not for a safety by Daron Payne, we'd probably get shut out of that game. It was 24-0 before he got the safety. So the defense, I think most people would say the defense has been, solid. It wasn't 2 years ago, obviously. This is the make or break year because right now it's 2 good years of Jack, 1 bad year of Jack with this defense. All right, 2020 outstanding, 2022 outstanding, 2021 not so much. This is the deal breaker here. This is the one that breaks the tie because if Jack and the defense reverts back to 2021 posture, then that says to me against better quarterbacks, against better offenses, we're just not that good. And we're not as good as we think we are. And we're not well coached enough. Right. But if we find a way to play quality ball against quality opponents, good quarterbacks, and we hang in there and give our offense a shot, then I say Jack's done a fantastic job, and this is the most talent he's had. So there's no excuses this year. Find a way to get it done. And the tackle situation, look, not many teams can withstand a ton of injuries at one position, specifically tackle. We're no different than anybody else. Our starters are fine. even our swing tackle, I'm really comfortable, as most of you probably are, with Cornelius Lucas. After that, you probably got to start moving some pieces around. Cosme probably has to go back out to tackle if he's healthy, so forth and so forth. Let's hope that let's knock on some wood and hope we don't have to explore any of those options this season. Raymond Johnson writes, it's going to be real interesting to see if these guys in the preseason games, especially EB, calling out the plays. I don't know if that's going to be a real thing in the preseason. I just want to see them look crisp, look like they know what the hell is going on. This is a storyline in itself. How much is the offense going to play? How much are the starters going to play in the preseason? It's not a huge storyline, because at the end of the day, whether they play them or not, we might bitch and complain about it, but it's all about health, getting to the starting blocks with as many of your horses as possible. So you can't complain about injuries or having guys get hurt, but at the same time talking out of this other side of your mouth saying you want guys to play in the preseason. So I just want to see what the offense looks like. But you know what? I kind of liken it to that 2012 year with Robert Griffin III. I was so anxious to see the offense. We saw a little bit. I remember that Buffalo preseason game. They marched it right down the field and scored a touchdown, but they really didn't show us a ton. You know, they unleashed holy hell on the New Orleans Saints in week 1 of that 2012 season, where we go to the Superdome and put up 40 points and Bob is on the ground griffining, right? Like, we had no idea what that offense was going to look like. So maybe it'll be something like that. We'll see. Keith Howard writes, O-line coming together is a big story unless injuries raise its big head. Obviously, the offensive line's got to be a major story. Again, if you're sold on Sam, if you're buying what Sam Howell is selling, then I think you have to go immediately to the offensive line or EB. Those are probably your two biggest storylines. The Pick of Destiny writes, will EB's play calling turn the offense around? Can the scrub O-line block anyone? And how much will it hurt losing Holcomb in free agency? Can Young come back after the knee surgery? Can Howell be a decent game manager? So a lot to chew on there. And I'll just say this. EB's play calling will be under a very, very hot spotlight. Very hot. Part of the reason he hasn't gotten a head coaching job is because people don't think he's responsible. As a commenter said earlier, I think it was Mr. Pink that said that. A lot of people aren't giving him credit for his input in that Chiefs offensive attack. They don't think he had as much to do with that as Andy Reid. Okay, fair enough. Let's see what he's got now that he's his own offensive coordinator in Washington. The offensive line, it has been improved. It's not the same group from last year, so I won't call them scrubs. And how much will it hurt losing Holcomb in free agency? We'll see. I don't know if it'll really hurt at all. I just think it was more of a preference thing. We don't know what Cody Barton's going to be. He could be an upgrade for all we know. I didn't love the Cody Barton signing, especially for what, Cole Holcomb ended up getting in Pittsburgh. I'm just like, why you just didn't bring him back? But they had hurt feelings, similar to the way they felt about Chase. If Chase Young were a free agent, he'd be gone right now. The only reason Cole Holcomb is gone is he was a free agent. They had the choice, and they decided not to re-sign him. Like, I think they were disappointed that he didn't play through the injury last year. They were disappointed in Chase Young last year. Thought he could have come back a lot sooner from the injury. So, the difference is Chase has another, year, but they showed their frustration by not picking up the 5th-year option. So we'll see. Same with Chase Young's knee injury. Can he come back from it? We're going to find out. That's a question that we all have, And can Howell be a decent game manager? I mean, people use that with a negative connotation. You have to be able to manage a football game as a quarterback. Got to be able to make plays and be a playmaker. But you've got to be able to manage a game as well. Joe Hewitt writes, Brissett for me. If he can't beat out Howell, then he won't be a good backup. I vehemently disagree with that. He wasn't brought here to beat out Sam Howell. He is a good backup, and he is a backup in this league. He was brought here to compete, but he knows his role. You know, he's saying all the right things. He's doing all the right things. He's putting his best foot forward. Yeah, he wants to play, but he knows he's a backup quarterback in this league. All right, he knows that. He had an opportunity last year with the Browns, and they won, 4 games? And 1 or 2 of them were by Deshaun Watson at the end of the season. So, yeah, no. He's a – where'd the Browns go? They couldn't have won 4 games. They had to win more like 6 games or so. He probably won 4 before Watson came back. So, yeah, no. He's a backup quarterback. Mark Stevenson writes, I look back at many seasons past and always bought into the hype and expected them to do better than the season before and was always disappointed. This season, I am going to wait and see how these rookies perform and see if Chase Young is going to show everyone he's not a bust. The 2 things that give most Commanders fans the most to cheer about is Daniel Snyder selling the team and EB as their new OC. That's fair. You know, I have no problems with anybody taking a wait and see approach. If there's one thing that this franchise has taught me over the years, it's you probably should take that approach. That's not how I'm wired. I'm a glass half full guy. Now, I'm a realist as well, okay? So don't get the 2 confused. You can be a realist and still be super optimistic, which is what I am. All right. But at the same time, if something's not right, I'm going to be the first to tell you now. We're not going to win very many games doing that shit. Right. But I think this franchise has taught us until they show us, you probably shouldn't jump off the deep end. I think last year was the biggest one of those years for me, you know, in recent memory, because I think I said this last year. I haven't been this excited for a season since I think 2012 was the answer, because or it might have been 2016, because coming off of that 15 season with all the weapons that we had, Deshaun and Pierre and Crowder and Reed, and, you know, with Kirk playing the way that he was playing, expecting him to get a long-term deal and feeling like we had found our quarterback. I was excited about the 16 season, and then week 1 shows up and the Steelers come in, take over the stadium, and Antonio Brown's twerking on us. Now, we rebounded from that and should have made the playoffs, but we didn't. But still, I was excited for the 16 season. Last year, I was excited, really excited about the offense because of the drafting of Jahan Dotson and thinking that Wentz was going to give us what he gave the Colts the year previous. And just feeling like with Brian Robinson at running back, you know, even though he had gotten shot, you know, that whole situation and Gibson being more of a weapon. And there was just a lot of reasons for optimism that was quickly dashed at around week 3. So, yeah. And every year with Ron, it's the same shit. It's got to be different this year. Nobody's brought up that storyline, but it's got to be different this year. We cannot afford to start slow and then decide to pick it up. Because what we've shown in these past 3 years is that we're not very good at getting over the hump. We can win you 3 out of 4 or 4 in a row, or last year 6 out of 7, right? We can do that. We did that last year. Won 6 out of 7. With that Vikings loss being the one loss, but it was sandwiched in between 2 3-game win streaks, right? So we've shown the ability to bounce back. 2020, start off the season 1-5, and then you're 2-7. You win 4 in a row. You're 6-7, but you can't get over the hump. You finish the season 7-9. But luckily enough for you, the rest of the division stinks, and 7-9 is good enough to win the division. That shouldn't be, but it was. But we didn't get over the hump in 2020. Fast forward to 2021. You start the season off 2-6. Look like you're dead at the bye week. You come out of the bye, you win 4 in a row. You're 6-6. You got 5 straight division games to finish up the season. Yep, COVID and injuries, all that. We can make all the excuses we want, but at the end of the day, we didn't take care of business. All right, got mollywopped by the division and ended up 7-10. Last year, slow start again. Start the season off 1-4. You look like you're left for dead. You somehow managed to win a game on the road against the Bears on a Thursday night, and it turns your season around. You end up winning 6 out of your next 7 games, and next thing you know, you're 7-5. Got a golden opportunity right before the bye to go on the road and beat up on the Giants, who are struggling at that point. You tie. The rest is history. You win 1 out of your final 3 games of the season, and you finish up the season at 8-1. So we haven't shown the ability to get over the hump when we start slow. So how about you just don't start slow? How about we try that for a change? So I don't blame anyone that wants to see it first. You should want to see it first. 1-6 Devil Doc writes, my biggest concern going into training camp is also the O-line. I'm optimistic that EB will be able to help the O-line with the game planning, with the quick throws, play action, and screens. But I'm not sure how it will hold up on obvious passing downs. I'm also very curious on how many players we're going to keep at O-line, 10 or 11, wide receiver, 5 or 6, DB, 10 or 11, D-line, 10 or 11. Can't see us keeping more than 6 receivers due to the uncertainty at O-line and the depth we have in the secondary and D-line. That'll be a great question for down the road. When we get to camp, that's something that we will talk about, which we do every year ad nauseum. We'll really start to dive into the specifics with the roster, and that will come with how guys have fared in training camp, you know, how we view this position. Are we deep enough here? Are we deep enough there? What guys do you think you can sneak onto the practice squad? All of those things will play into the decision-making process. So we'll have plenty of time to explore that. But the offensive line is 1-6 Devil Doc's biggest concern at this moment. AJSTP 003 writes, Cam Curl, really that essential for the secondary? That is a great question. One that I find very fascinating. Because everyone just assumes, oh, we got to pay Cam Curl. And I think he will be paid ultimately, you know, here in Washington. But last year, leaving the season, what was one of the most regurgitated statements about the demise of this defense down the stretch of the season? And even the early portion of the season, the first 2 weeks against Jacksonville and Detroit, when this defense did not fare very well. Didn't have Cam Curl. What a difference he makes, right? Didn't have him in the second Giants game. We weren't very good defensively that night. Didn't give up a bunch of points, but we weren't very good, especially on 3rd and 4th downs in particular. Didn't have him against the 49ers. We were awful in that game defensively. Didn't have him against the Browns. We were awful in that game in the second half, specifically defensively. So the prevailing thought was, oh, Cam Curl is the key. When he's not in there, communication goes to hell in a handbasket. We're terrible. Is that true? Let's hope we don't have to find out this year, right? Let's hope he stays healthy and just plays. But if he doesn't stay healthy and all of the depth that we've provided ourselves with, do we have a replacement for him on the roster? That's a great question. I hope we don't find out the answer. That's my hope. Hope he's healthy and they're able to utilize him or whomever the way that they want to, and not because of an injury, but because this is just the guys we want to put on the field. Want them to have a full clip. Bernard Parker writes, does the offense play with urgency consistently under EB? We just be chilling like, bruh, man, we on the 5th floor. He said, we just be chilling like, bruh, man, on the 5th floor. when we down by 17 going into the third quarter like we got all day. That's something that we won't really know until we get into the regular season, right? Like, to his point, I can't begin. It was almost like Scott Turner didn't have the ability to go up tempo. It's like he only thought you could go no huddle at the ends of quarters, like, 2-minute drill before half and, late in the game. That was the only time we could go hurry up. Like, you do know that there's no rule that says you can speed like, and a part of me understands why they didn't do that very often, because that's not the way we play football. That was kind of contrary to what we ultimately wanted to do, which was win time of possession, bleed the clock, shorten the game, et cetera, et cetera. I get all of that, but that doesn't mean that you can't in the first possession of the second quarter go tempo for 3 or 4 plays, like, just to change things up. Anyway, I hear you loud and clear. Terrence Mountain writes, my major topic, DB. Who's going to make the 53-man roster? The new rule is they're going from 90 to 53. So that secondary is going to be interesting. It's going to be fun to watch it unfold. I think we know I think it's going to be 11 guys, 10 or 11 guys. So at safety right now, you've got Cam Curl, you've got Defoe, you've got Percy Butler, you've got Quan Martin, and you've got All-Pro Revo. So those are the 5 guys, right, at safety that are making the team. And then you get to the cornerback position, assuming Danny Johnson's making the football team. You've got Juice, Fuller, Forbes, Johnson, and I'm going to assume, let me make sure I didn't forget about it. You've got Juice, Fuller, Forbes. Yeah, I said Juice. I had to make sure. Johnson, and I'm thinking, Sip is going to make the team as well. Christian Holmes, because he's such a good special teams player. So I think you got 10 guys. Don't forget about the young boys they signed last year too that are still around. Castro Fields, Rashad Wild Goose. Like, don't sleep on those dudes either. Willis Lee writes, can this offense score a sufficient amount of points to far exceed previous year's productions? Yes. We can win enough games to make the playoffs? No. Total staff turnover and complete upheaval for several more years. So, I mean, those are long-term questions that, again, you won't know until the end of the season. But we'll see. I mean, that's a big one, scoring points. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Comasel Brown writes, O-line, because as they go will determine how our offense goes. Yeah, I mean, same can be said for Sam Howell, but it starts up front with the offensive line. I agree. Jay Willard, 89, writes, the easy answer is Sam Howell, but mine is this O-line and what shakes out after we put on pads and see how these big guys hold up when bodies start being pushed around. I would like to see Ricky Stromberg be able to lock down the center position and leave Nick Martin to be able to compete for the left guard spot with Charles and Paul. I think he meant Nick Gates. Nick Martin was here last year, so I could see how you could confuse the two. And if Cosme can't stay healthy, do we move Lucas to the right tackle spot and move Wiley into that right guard? I'm thinking that would be probably their first. That would probably be their first inclination, is to take Cosme, kick him back outside, and take Andrew Wiley, kick him inside, and just insert Cornelius Lucas. You hate to lose your tackle depth, though. by doing that. I think they would first play around maybe with the interior before messing around with Wiley, especially if he's playing well at tackle. Especially if he's playing well. I don't think they want to mess with the tackle position. That's why you get all of these guys. That's why you get, because if Ricky Stromberg has shown you enough at that point, you stick in. Even if Ricky Stromberg hasn't, right? They won't hesitate to go to Tyler Larson. He was fantastic the last 2 years when he was healthy. And Ron brought this up. Again, one of those unprovoked responses. Tyler Larson, 6-6-1. We were 6-6-1 with Tyler Larson in the lineup. We made the joke last year he was the most important player on the roster. So they won't hesitate to stick him in at center, move Nick Gates to guard, right? Like, I think that's more plausible than them moving Andrew Wiley, especially if he's playing well. Now, if Wiley's leaving a lot to be desired, then they may kick him inside, and but you don't want to move that tackle. You don't want to start playing with your tackle depth because you don't have a lot of that. Says there are so many questions along this O-line right now. That is where I'm going to be watching the most. Oh, and another note, Daniel's show, is he the left tackle of the future, or is someone that will have to move inside also? That's a really good one, because a lot of people don't talk about Braden Daniels. We drafted him. We don't expect him to really play or be a contributor in year one. So I think it's out of sight, out of mind with him. But he could easily show them in camp that, hey, not only can I play tackle, but I'm ready to help right now if you need me. I don't think that's going to occur. But what I'm hoping he does, to your point, is that he comes in here, shows well, gets some vital work in, learns from the veterans, and next year when they're ready to move on from Charles Leno, he's ready to step in. If that's not the case, they'll just add him to the depth of the offensive line, and they'll have to probably spend a first-round pick on an offensive tackle next year. But we'll see. All right. Smitty says, can EB and Howell save Ron's job? That's a good one. I mean, that's what it all boils down to, right? All these changes Ron made this offseason, it's in order to save his job. Can he do it? We'll see. All right. Absurda writes, hey, Louie, cornerback Sturgis is still on the roster, and the biggest storyline is he will be the reason Fuller gets cut. Also, Rodriguez will be RB1 by week 1. That's absurd. So maybe that's why your name is Absurdera, because that's absurd. Neither one of those things are happening. Derek B writes, I expect Sam to look and play like a very talented rookie quarterback. I'll be happy if we're able to come out of 2023 feeling like we got something in him, and we need to see more of, regardless of the coaching staff. I agree with that assessment. The biggest storyline and enigma for the 2023 season is Chase Young. I have no idea what he's going to bring to the table. If we get the game-wrecking difference maker that we drafted number 2 overall, then we'll make the playoffs. If we get a repeat of 2021, he'll be gone by the trade deadline. I think I said earlier on tonight's show that we have no idea what we're getting out of Chase Young, and that is a true statement. For as much as I would love to say Chase is going to do this, Chase is going to do that, I can't say that because 2021 was so jarring, right? You go from defensive rookie of the year to a guy that was at times non-existent on the field. You didn't even know if he was playing or not. I mean, it's really hard to put into words how disappointing that 2021 season was prior to the injury. And, what kind of gave him a pass was that he got hurt. But, for those of us who are fans of the team that watched all the games, we knew what he was doing prior to that injury. So we weren't willing to cut him a break, right? But had he finished that season uninjured, and let's say he finished with 4.5 sacks, we would have crushed him. we would have crucified him. But that injury kind of gave him a pass. And so now, this is the make or break in. I actually hate it for him. I'm glad he's healthy. He's got the clean bill of health, yada, yada, yada. But I hate it for him because you would have loved to have seen him. This is a significant knee injury that we're talking about here. Like, again, we've talked about this. He did things to his knee that don't go together, So you'd like to see him at least get, some time. And maybe that's what last year served as. I know last year was more so big for his psyche, his confidence. Like, hey, the knee's fine. I can go out. There can be bodies around my leg. I'll be fine. I think that was what more of last year was about than out here going and dominating. It's just that mental hurdle that he couldn't overcome, which is why he didn't play against Houston. He didn't play against Atlanta. He didn't play in either one of the Giants games that we were expecting him to play in, That it was a mental hurdle that he had to overcome. He did that last year at the end of the season, playing in the final 3 games. But is that enough of a runway for him to be the player that we know he's capable of being? I don't know. It's a hell of a year to have to find out, because the difference between him getting broken off and him just being another dude out here on the streets looking for some work next year is how he performs in 2023. So we'll see. Like I said, anything involving Chase Young is a juicy storyline. May not be at the top of your list, but it's one of the juicier storylines. Leno Ryan Benvenite writes, for me, it's going to be the development of Sam Howell. Is he or isn't he the future at the quarterback position for the Commanders? How fast is he progressing, and what will he look like during training camp, preseason, and then in the first quarter of the season? Does he show improvement throughout the season? Does he lead Washington to the playoffs, or is he replaced by midseason by Brissett? Besides getting DS out of town, Daniel Snyder, and starting with the new owner, that's my number one storyline that I'll be watching. That's a great one. I mean, again, if you're not sold on Sam Howell, then he should be storyline number one. Because, again, there's no position more important in the NFL than quarterback. We could sit here and talk about left guard. We could talk about the depth on the defensive line. Oh, my God, these receivers are beasts. None of that shit matters if you don't have the guy behind center to take advantage of any of that stuff. The difference doesn't make. You have the best offensive line in football. If your quarterback stinks, doesn't matter. So, yeah, Sam's development is going to be huge in the success or failure of this football team. Calvin Krim says, let's see. Calvin Krim says, all these questions you're posing about the team makes me wonder just how ready we truly are. My biggest question, how many answers does Ron have that actually work out? Feels like we're giving Ron a final exam and playoffs equal a passing score. Okay. I raised these questions not to create doubt, but I mean, if that's where you are, hey, by all means, go for it. But I will tell you this. What will ultimately determine Ron's fate, I think truly, is not only how good this team performs next year. Do we, are we good enough to make the playoffs, et cetera, whatever the case may be. I think it's how we play, because we could start the season off 8-1, limp to the finish line and finish 10-7 and still make the playoffs. Remember the Arizona Cardinals 2 years ago? They were the last undefeated team, barely made the playoffs, barely hung on, and then got smoked in the first round. by the Rams in the playoffs and looked terrible. You can make the playoffs and still get fired, right? So I don't know if just making the playoffs is enough. I'll take it a step further. That's one scenario. That's not what we do, though. That's not what Ron's been. The more realistic and logical scenario would be we start the season off 3 and let's say 3-7, and then we win 7. We win 7. No, 7 in a row is too much. Let's say we start the season off 4-6, right? And at one point we were 3. Let's say we were 3-6. We start the season off 3-6. I like that. 3-6. We win our final 6 out of 7 games, or 7 out of 8 games. Let's call it that. We win our final 7 out of 8 games. Finish the season at 10-7 and make the playoffs. That feels different than losing your final, 7 out of 8 games or whatever, or 6 out of 8 games and barely making it to the playoffs. However, you still started slow again. You didn't win a playoff game. Is that enough to save his job? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what Ron truly has to do to secure an opportunity to coach this team one more year, because technically Ron has one more year after this year, one more year on his deal. He signed a 5-year deal. So they don't have to do anything with Ron. They could let him play out, coach out his contract and just not bring him back. Or they could get rid of him a year early and move on to the next guy and start the process. Or Ron could say, nah, I belong here, and he could prove it, and that's that. So, again, that's a great storyline, because we don't really know what Ron has to do to secure his job, what the results have to be. Again, this isn't the NBA. A lot of you, want to bring up, oh, man, Josh Harris fired Doc Rivers. They went to the, Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago, and they were in the semifinals, this past year. I don't think where we are and where the 76ers are the same. 76ers were a lot closer to a chip than we are. So, I don't know. We'll see. Let's see. And 2ND writes, and second. I think that's what that is. And second writes, headlines in season turning expected upsets into wins for the Commanders. I'm waiting for apologies. The team has no talent. Bieniemy shouldn't have come to Washington. 10+ wins, playoff competitors. One of my favorite things every year with this team is their ability to rise to the occasion, whether it's the Eagles game on Monday night last year against an undefeated Philadelphia Eagles team, or it's the Steelers undefeated in 2020, or the Buccaneers. They were the Super Bowl defending champions. We were 2-6 coming off of a bye. We suck. And we rose to the occasion. And not only did we beat them, we scored 29 points. I think that was the highest output of the season in 2021. 29 was. I could be wrong about that. I don't recall us scoring more than 30 last year at all, at any point. But in saying all of that, it's the consistency against the lesser teams that bothers me. And that's what separates the good, like my Atlanta Braves in baseball or my Memphis Grizzlies in the NBA. Good teams, they take care of the teams that they're supposed to beat. You want to know how Kansas City wins 13, 14, 15 games every year? They beat the teams they're supposed to beat. Like, they're not losing to the Raiders if the Raiders suck. That's family business. They don't give a damn. You're not good. You're not beating us. You know, if you're struggling, you've lost 5 in a row. They're not losing to you. Sometimes it's tough for them to get up for the bad teams. They struggled with the Texans last year. Could have easily lost that game. It might have been 2 years ago. These years start to bleed together, but they win. They found a way to win that game, right? It's not always pretty, but look, we're not losing to teams that we're better than. Period. Now, they raise their game when they play better opponents. Sometimes they fall short, but you win 12, 11, 13 games by beating the teams you're supposed to beat. And then beating, 1 or 2 of the teams that you're evenly matched with or you're not supposed to beat. Our problem is we'll jump up and bite the best team in football or one of the better teams in football, but we have no problems losing to a lesser team or, that's the thing that bothers me with, and I struggle with is the lack of consistency. That's the thing that's going to separate us. Can we be consistent? That's why you start the season off 1-4 or 2-6 or 2-7, because you lack consistency. Let's see. This one is from Will Diggs. I think Cole Turner needs to solidify the tight end position and be a number 1 for years to come. He has the tools to do so. I'm waiting. He's got to show it. I think he'll get an opportunity this year. This will be his best chance. I can tell you that much. Or at least his best chance under Ron and company. They could be gone. Logan Thomas could be gone next year, and Cole could still be here, and he could get an even better opportunity next year. But in his second year, he's with no Amani Rodgers. He's going to get, I think, and him being the most athletically gifted tight end on the roster right now, we're going to see what he's made of. Brian Butler writes, how will Bieniemy use AG and Curtis Samuel? It's a good one. Who's starting in the secondary in Hudson versus Barton? I don't know if Hudson versus Barton is a real thing or not. We know Kalik has been playing really well, but I continue to make the point of saying Kalik is more of the Jamin Davis replacement than he is the Cody Barton replacement. But look, we'll see. Kalik got his opportunity last year. It was in relief of Jamin Davis, who was out for the remainder of the season, right? So we'll see. I think Barton's going to start. They brought him here to start, but we'll see. Not like they're paying him a whole bunch of money. Who's starting in the secondary? We talked about that already. That's going to be really intriguing. I think Juice is going to end up being in the slot, but we'll see what happens. And then how will Bieniemy use AG and Curtis Samuel is his number 1. That's a really good number 1 to have because at the end of the day, those are 2 weapons that we think are multifaceted, can do so many different things, and need the ball out in space. And it'd be nice to see him be able to do that. 2 up, 2 down, right? Will Bieniemy transform the offense into a top 10 unit? Chase Young or Sweat? So those are 2 good storylines heading into camp for sure. Even if it's not a top 10 offensive unit, if it's hovering around top 10, we're a problem, period. Because we haven't even been close to the top 10. Darren Bynum writes, the biggest storyline is what Sam is going to do with the division games. These are the biggest games of the season, just as we know. Best in the best division in the league as far as competition. Division games are huge. And Sam started off well. He beat Dallas last year. You can make excuses for Dallas if you'd like. They didn't have anything to play for, even though they did, because they didn't know what Philadelphia was doing against the Giants. But the bottom line is he's 1-0 against the division right now. It's a great start. Let's see what he does. He'll get Philadelphia twice early in the season. He'll get the Giants twice. Not early in the season, but once early and then the other kind of the mid portion of the season. Then he gets Dallas twice late. See how he handles those division games. Those are going to be huge, right? Dominic Smith writes, let's go Washington. Great offseason. So he didn't have one. Just hoping that the offseason bleeds into training camp and into the regular season and that we perform well. We'll see what happens. Escaped 1534 writes, can draft pick center Ricky Stromberg take the position and stay healthy all season? Will pick guard Braden Daniels start and solidify the line? So he wants to see if these young guys, these rookies, are going to get an opportunity to play or not. My guess is neither one of them will be starting week one. My guess is they'll have a veteran offensive line come week one. No rookies will be a part of it. Not to say that these rookies will not at some point contribute to the offensive line, but my guess is neither of those guys will be starting, but both will be on the roster. That's my guess. Sonny Rawson writes, I'm looking for this offensive line to prove they can communicate well and build some continuity, but I do have some concerns. My storyline is, did we really spend the third and fourth on a guy who didn't see the field at all this year if things go well? I wonder if those picks could have been used on positions that could more immediately help this roster. We needed depth. I understand that. However, the most third and fourth round picks are guys who are rotational pieces and play special teams at the very worst. Curious to listen to your thoughts. I understand where you're coming from there. You have to understand where they're coming from. Center was ravaged, not last year, but the past 2 years, the center position has been an abject disaster because of injuries. Not just your starter, but your backup also was lost for the entire season, each of the last 2 seasons at some point. So I get the overreaction by Washington to find their center of the future because, again, Nick Gates is versatile. He can play both center and guard. So Ricky Stromberg offers you the ability to move Gates if need be, and really you're hoping not miss a beat. To your point, you can draft a third and fourth round guy and they're supposed to help, but I'd look at it like this. Not all teams operate the same way. The Eagles drafted Cam Jurgens, a center out of Nebraska, last year in the second round. Why? Because they weren't sure what their future Hall of Fame center Kelsey was going to do, right? What's Jason Kelsey going to do? He played last year. Is this his last year? No, he's coming back and playing again. They spent a second round pick on Cam Jurgens, and he hasn't seen the field and won't if Jason Kelsey continues to stay healthy for 2 straight years. It happens. So I'm not worried about them spending a third or fourth round pick on guys that may or may not see the field. At the end of the day, they have plans for those guys moving forward. And a little seasoning isn't going to hurt those players. If they're good, they'll find their way on the field. If they're not, then they made poor choices anyway. So not really too concerned about that. But I get where you're coming from. But our roster isn't set up where we can afford to not have depth on the offensive line. That's more important than a rotational piece or a special teams player somewhere else. We need the depth on the offensive line. Freddie Lee writes, I think it's between our DBs and our DNs in terms of the biggest storyline. Lot of talent between those two positions. Michael White writes, offensive line, and offensive line. So, yeah, I get it. Offensive line. And I'm not mad at it at all. Trevor Patch writes, hey, Lou. What's going on, Trev? Says, my storyline for training camp and preseason is different. It is centered around watching to see if Ron is truly trying something different, or are we just getting more of the same, just in different wrapping paper? During training camp and preseason last year, I didn't feel any energy. I remember you saying it, coming from the players. I remember you saying that. And I remember dismissing you and saying, bro, it's not a big deal. I don't really know what you're looking for. And we came out, and I felt like the energy was fine, and we won the game against Jacksonville. I didn't think the energy was low against Detroit, even though we were down 22-0 at halftime. I didn't feel like we came out, we got a 3-and-out to start that game off, right? We just didn't perform well. We couldn't block anybody in that game. But to your point, you felt like the energy level wasn't there. He says, I saw no passion, and they appeared to be just kind of going through the motions. Before the last preseason game, I asked the question if Ron had lost the locker room in selling his way. I brought this up in the mob, and I was crucified by you in the mob for it. I remember all of these. I remember like kind of just dismissing you, like, what are you talking about, man? Yet we only saw that dysfunctionality rear its ugly head until through the win against the Bears, given everything from William Jackson III being benched to Jonathan Allen's keep that energy backlash against the fan base. Ron got rid of Sam Mills and brought on RK, and that produced a fierce defensive line without Chase and Tez at times. Ron has since replaced coaches and restructured the organization. My question and thing to watch for is, do we see a reemergence in buy-in from the players and output of passion, being in the moment and not zombies going through the motions, making business decisions? I have doubts because we still have a lot of the same command thirst staff and brought in many individuals from the same boys club that Ron is from and somehow traced to a tenure with Andy Reid. So you want to see if there's buy-in. I never felt like the players lost trust in Ron. I do think that there was a bit of a fissure, right? Just a small crack that was formed against the Browns last year. Ron made a mistake, and I think behind closed doors, to a degree, he owned that mistake with the team. There's only so much you can say. You got Heineke and Carson Wentz sitting in these meetings, right? You can't crucify these guys in front of the team. But with neither one of them being there this year, I wouldn't be shocked if Ron has already said, hey, my decision to go with, Carson last year, that was on me. And it wasn't the right decision. I can tell you, Ron sort of said something to the effect of, hey, we made some mistakes. He said we, not to single himself out, not to single anybody else out. We make mistakes. I think when he says we, he's talking about himself specifically, that decision to bench Heineke. I think that's the only time the players might have lost true trust for Ron and company. But you saw how they played in week 18, the very next week after being eliminated from the playoffs. I think that speaks volumes about the kind of impact you have on your players. And have you lost the locker room is when you have nothing to play for, you've been eliminated, and your players still go out, play hard for you, and win a game that is absolutely meaningless for you, but means everything for the opposition. Another great example of that is Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. They were eliminated from playoff contention before they stepped on the field in that Week 18 game on the road at Green Bay. They had nothing to play for. Green Bay wins, they go to the playoffs. Detroit wins, they're going home, so is Green Bay. They had nothing to play for other than pride and, hey, it'd be nice to take Green Bay home with us. And what did? They went out, they left no stone unturned, and they stole that game from the Packers in Lambeau Field. We had nothing to play for in Week 18. Guys could have mailed it in. We could have gotten our asses reamed. I thought we were going to. All the air left our sails as fans when we lost to the Browns and got eliminated later on that evening. And then Ron steps up to the podium and says, I didn't know we could be eliminated. And, we lost all faith in him at that point. Guy's clueless. That's what most of you thought. I didn't think he was clueless. I just said he shouldn't, even if he didn't know. Because you could get wrapped up and focusing in so much on what you have to do that you're not worried about what he should have said. I was so, because he said something to the effect of, I wasn't worried about, I just thought we were going to win. That's what he said. And his response should have been something to the effect of, I don't know what the scenarios are. I just know if we win, we get it. That's all I know. We just needed to win. I was so focused on us winning that I wasn't really concerned with what the scenarios were. So I don't know what happens. We lost. I just know that. We took the control out of our hands. But in any event, they could have folded up like a cheap lawn chair the following week against Dallas. Dallas was playing for the division. We were playing for nothing but pride. They went out and they kicked Dallas's ass. So I hear what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but I don't think he ever lost the locker room. I don't think Ron has ever lost the locker room. Even the year he got fired in Carolina, they were still fighting for him. Ray Grubb Jr. writes, I'm good with Sam and the tight ends. Tez and Young will figure their issue out. I'm curious how much Quan plays. He had that talk with Smoot, mentioning he will play nickel and some safety. Pretty interesting to me anyways. Keep up the good work, Lou. I appreciate that. Figuring out that secondary is going to be fun. That's a great problem to have, as I mentioned, but it's still a problem nonetheless. Juan Gotti talking sports, right? Something different. Here's my storyline. Will Joey Sly be a Sly guy? Or will he be replaced with him possibly having competition in camp? That's a good one. I don't think they're going to get rid of Joey Sly. I don't even know if we have any real competition for him or not. But Joey Sly is going to be the week one kicker. I feel pretty confident about that. I will say this, though. A poor camp or some misses in the preseason could force them to go out and get someone and make it a competition, though. But if he takes care of business in camp and into the preseason, I don't think we'll have an issue with him. Last year felt Dustin Hopkins-ish from this perspective. He missed a lot of kicks that he had no business missing. It felt different than Dustin Hopkins from this point of view. He made kicks Dustin would have never made. Dustin always had the leg to make a 56-yarder, but he never did. I didn't even trust Dustin from 51. 48, yeah, he was going to bang that home. But 51, he's going to find a way to push that shit left or right, hit the upright, miss. Joey Sly, was hitting bombs last year. But he also missed from like 27 yards. What was that kick against Dallas in the final game of the season? 27 yards or some shit? You can't be missing those. He missed a bunch of extra points last year. Like, those are the things that you're like, come on, Joey, bro. Like, seriously. Like, I need it. And like Harrison, like kickers go through that, because Sly the year before when we got him, when we first, he was outstanding. He played for 3 different teams and only missed like 2 or 3 kicks the entire year. Kickers go through these seasons where they sustain an injury, whatever the case may be, and they're just a little off. We saw Mason Crosby struggle. The Cowboys had a really good kicker, and then he got the yips at the end of the season and couldn't make any damn thing, and they cut him right after the season was done. He's a good kicker. He was making kicks from 54 and 55 and 56 consistently throughout the year, kicking bombs. And then he just got the yips. The Chiefs kicker, he's one of the best kickers in football, Harrison Butker. He struggled last year. Now, it doesn't make as much of a difference with the Chiefs because they're scoring 35 and 38 and 44. So it's not as big of a deal. But he struggled. But when they needed him in the Super Bowl, he stepped up, right? I like Joey. I think Joey's going to have a better year this year, but it felt Dustin Hopkins-ish to me last year. I don't like that shit. I need him to be better. That's a good storyline. Eric DeBose writes, my biggest storyline is the development or lack thereof of Sam Howell. Well, that's good. That's a big storyline, period. Solomon Ali writes, the biggest storyline for me is, can this O-line come together since they are critical to Howell's and this team's or this offense's success? Definitely a good one. Let's see. Mr. Ron B. OG Triple OG writes, hey, Lou, here are my top 5 storylines. Number 5, will our punt and kick return please step up? Number 4, how does our cornerback position play out? Number 3, is Jamin Davis healthy and ready to step up in year 3? Number 2, who takes a hold of our left guard position, Charles Paul or a free agent signing? And number 1, will this training camp mark the beginning of SH14 taking the reins of our franchise quarterback? All good storylines, all hold, weight and all have significance to them. We'll see how all of those are ironed out come late July into August and eventually into September. One Dub 79 writes, the development of Sam Howell combined with Eric Bieniemy's offense, how Eric Bieniemy's offense will run. Again, those two will be kind of tied at the hip. Joined at the hip. Because a lot of the success of Howell will be tied to EB, and a lot of EB success will be tied to how Sam Howell plays. So, yeah, I think both of those go a long way. C. Brunson writes, my personal biggest headline is kick returner. We haven't had an electric return man since Brandon Banks. A good kick return can be the deciding factor in a game. Outside of quarterback and 1 or 2 other positions, Washington hasn't had a scary kick returner or even a decent one in over a decade. I disagree with that because just 2 years ago, we had a very dangerous return man. DeAndre Carter, right? He returned one for a touchdown, had a couple of other nice returns. He was a difference maker, was DeAndre Carter, which is why I didn't understand. I get Dax Milne was a draft pick, this, that, and the third. But we know Dax Milne wasn't going to be dynamic back there. So I didn't really understand why they wanted to go away from DeAndre Carter, but they did. And I won't say that it backfired, but it definitely didn't help us. That's for sure. Mega writes, my biggest storyline / concern going into camp is the same from last year. Offensive line ability / depth. We have a collection of mid-starting on the offensive line this year. It's a damn shame we have to say that Charles Leno is our best-rated offensive lineman on the roster. Left guard is still up in the air, even though it's not a real battle between Sadiq and Paul. Our tackle depth is absolutely butt cheeks. Besides Corn Lucas, the depth we have at tackle is laughable. We drafted Braden Daniels in the 4th, who most likely won't even see the field this year. Bad draft capital management. Trent Scott and Alex A are both unknown mid at best. Our guard depth is equally suspect. Sam Cosmi hasn't been able to stay healthy since we drafted him. We have a career backup and 7th rounder competing for the starting left guard spot. And behind the starters, we have a long list of practice squad players. Keaton Sutherland, Nolan Laufenberg, Andrew Norwell. You can't find me one player on our offensive line depth chart that incites realistic high expectations. Our tackle depth are really guards in the NFL, and our guard depth is despicable. LOL. Here comes another year here comes another year where we are hoping for the best, but overlooking this obvious issue on one of the most important position groups in the game. New QB, new system, and 4 new starters, he writes, on the O-line. Ron is doing the exact same thing he did last year, putting together an O-line full of lemons and hoping the offense can make lemonade. Only difference this year is it's EB and Travell Wharton instead of John Matsko. What other story can compare to this madness? My bad, Lou, for the book. Had to get this off my chest right quick, though. LOL. No problem. So I think that's a little harsh. I get what you're saying, and I understand where you're coming from. And I'm not mad at you for feeling that way. I think it's a little harsh, though. I think one of the biggest issues with the offensive line last year was it was an old group. You had a center coming off of surgery, and we weren't worried about him. And if he's healthy, he would have been fine, but he didn't stay healthy. You had, your tackle situation with Cosme and Charles Leno, and we were fine with that. Just needed Cosme to stay healthy, right? He didn't. So, there goes that again. But they were playing around with that tackle position anyway. They were moving guys around, and I wasn't really excited about what they were doing necessarily, but excuse me. The guards were old. They were old last year. They upgraded those positions. The left guard, did they upgrade it or did they just promote from within? We'll see. Sadiq Charles has made, changes to his approach, his diet, his workout regimen, all of those things. Maybe it yields a return on investment that we've been waiting on since since they drafted him, right? We'll see. But I think this offensive line, look, it's not a world beater, all right? And no one's going to pretend that it is. And I've already said that our tackles, both of them, you can do a lot better than, but you can do a lot worse than them. With Sam's athleticism, it helps this offensive line, right? You don't have to be great when your quarterback has wheels and a quick release, which Sam has both. So I truly believe that the offensive line will be fine if we can find a way to stay healthy. That's going to be the key. Ouch. Ja Rock writes, I think an interesting storyline that hasn't been discussed is the possibility of Curtis Samuel and Antonio Gibson possibly fighting for one contract similar to Chase and Montez. They will both be used as a back and out wide in the slot, and possibly that they will be fighting for snaps in that role. 2 chess pieces with expiring contracts. What do you think, Lou? So they don't play the same position. So I don't think they're necessarily fighting for, one contract per se, because you can pay one significantly less than the other. If Antonio Gibson ends up being really good for you, you're not going to have to break the bank. He's a running back. We see the running backs are struggling to get paid as is. If you're not a 1,800-yard, rusher, and you've done that 2 or 3 years in a row, you're not getting broken off. So if Gibson turns out to be a hell of a gadget weapon, he'll get paid. But just look at J.D. McKissick, and they're not the same. I get that, but look at what we paid J.D. McKissick last year. You'll be able to get Antonio Gibson back on a 3-year, $12 million deal next year. 3 years, $15 million if he plays well this year. If you want him back, you're not getting Curtis Samuel for that kind of bread. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a significant difference between the two. So I don't think they're fighting for one contract. And while both of them can be in the backfield and both of them can be used as gadgets, I mean, Curtis Samuel established themselves last year as more than just a jet sweep gadget guy that you can hand it or toss it to out of the backfield. He was a prolific slot receiver last year. Like, he did some work last year, especially on 4th downs. So I don't think they're fighting for one contract, but that's an interesting way to put it. But I don't think that's that situation at all. But We'll see. All right. Kevin, the PRF, writes, everything hinges on Sam Howell. It's the only story. The entire front office, the coaching staff hinges on his success this season. If he ends up looking like an average fifth rounder, the entire roster is on the table for a future front office's long-term plans. And thus, every other storyline won't matter much. You're not wrong. You're absolutely 110% spot on about everything kind of hinging on the success of Sam Howell. Again, Sam could play well. This defense could play poorly. We could have a kicker that's spotty. And even though Sam played really well, everybody still gets fired. So it's not just Sam, but I've said this before. I'll say it again. And I don't think I have to say this because you guys understand this. But we're only going to go as far as Sam takes us. You know, I could come up with a million different scenarios on why, it's not just Sam, but ultimately Sam has to play well. If he doesn't, then it does. All of that stuff is irrelevant, to your point. Saviero P writes, not a huge storyline, but Joey Sly choked in the clutch a few times last year. Is he on a short leash, or are they sold on him despite his inconsistency? Have they brought in any competition? I can check for you. I don't think, as of right now, there is any competition on the roster, but it won't hurt to just check real quick. So let me see. Joey Sly is the only kicker currently on the roster. And I don't foresee them bringing in any competition. I really, truly, unless he is horrible. Unless he is horrible in the preseason or in training camp and their questions, they're going to roll with Joey Sly. So he was inconsistent last year. Let me look up his numbers from last year. I don't think he was as bad as people think. He missed a lot of extra points. But my problem with him was, in the NFL, you can't miss from 30 to 39. That's a no-no for me. Like, extra points at 33 yards, you're going to miss because you kicked so many of them. You're going to miss one or two of those in the season. You would like your kicker to not miss any of those, but you're probably going to miss one or two of those. Let's be honest. The best kicker I've ever seen in my life, and I know the Adam Vinatieri stands out there will come out of the woodworks, but the best kicker I've ever seen is Justin Tucker. He even missed an extra point last year. Like, shit happens, right? But what you're not allowed to do is when it counts for 3, you can't miss that. All right. When it counts for 1, I'll let you slide this time. When it counts for 3 points, you can't miss from 30 to 39 yards. You can't. Then, to me, 40 to 49 is the money distance in the NFL. That's where the bulk of your kicks are going to come from. If you kick 27 kicks in the season, at a bare minimum, 15 to 17 of them are going to come from 40 to 49. You better make a vast majority of those kicks, And then, depending on how aggressive your coach is, 50 to 59, you might kick 6 of those in the season, anywhere from 4 to 6 of those. Let's go to Joey Sly and see what his percentage was last year. It was in the 80s, and my guess is he missed 5 kicks. 3 of them, my guess is he missed 6 kicks, and 3 were extra points and 3 were field goals. That feels like a lot when you factor in the extra points. Joey Sly. Let's see. Joey Sly was 25 of 30. So he missed 5 kicks, 5 field goals. His long was 58 against the Eagles, which we haven't seen a 58-yarder in Washington. I forgot the guy's name that we signed like late in the season, and he banged one from like 56 or 7 or something like that, something crazy. All right. Extra points. He missed one against Dallas, and he he missed 2 field goals against Dallas. And he missed an extra point against Dallas. So shit, he missed 3 of his 5 misses on the season, or it's 2 of his 5 misses from the season were in week 18. He struggled in that game. Missed an extra point as well. He was perfect in the Browns game. He was perfect in the 49ers game. He missed an extra point against the Giants. That's why we were down by 8. So that was a problem in a game that we had to have. He missed a field goal against the Giants in that game that we tied. So obviously, you make that field goal, we win. He missed an extra point against the Falcons. And if the Falcons would have scored a touchdown, made the extra point, we would have lost that game 20-19, and then we would have been all on his ass. Perfect against the Texans, perfect against the Eagles in that Monday night upset, perfect against the Vikings, perfect against the Colts. He missed a field goal against the Packers. He missed a field goal against the Bears. Perfect against the Titans, perfect against the Cowboys. Didn't attempt anything against the Eagles in week 3. Missed an extra point against the Lions, which is why we were down 9 without a chance to come back in that game. And then he was perfect against Jacksonville. So, sheesh, that's a lot more misses than I thought. So, let's tally up these extra point misses. We know he missed 5 field goals. How many extra points did he miss? 1, 2, 3. Let me make sure I'm right here. 1, 2, 3. So he missed 3 extra points to go along with 5. So 8 total misses on the season. That's a lot. You know, that's a lot of misses. But the year before, he was 12 for 12 for us, right? So, you know, and he was 7 of 8 for the 49ers and 4 of 5 for the Texans. So in aggregate, in 2021, he was 21. He was 23 of 25. He only missed 2 kicks, and none of them were in Washington. So you're hoping he just gets back to that. That's what they're hoping. They know he's capable. We'll see what he does. I got confidence in him. I like him a lot. I like Joey a lot. He's got to get his act together, though. That was a lot of misses. I thought it was like 6. It was 8 total. He's got to get his act together. Let's see. See, this is the problem I have. See, so his misses, when you look at them, it's not bad. Like 30 of 39 on the field goals, or 30 from 30 to 39. He was 4 or 5. Like, in that one miss that I was talking about was against Dallas. Like, you can't miss that. So he was almost perfect there. I need him to not have a miss there. From 40 to 49, that's the money distance. He was 8 of 10. I mean, that's not bad, right? It's not bad. And he was 4 of 6 from 50 to 59. That's really good. So he wasn't as bad. He wasn't as bad. He can be better, though. I'll just say that. Anyway, I digress. Billy A. writes, I knew Defoe was going to start when we drafted him. I ain't know he was going to be this good, though. So trust me when I tell you Percy Butler is going to start. I love Quan Martin, though. That's, again, I think a lot of people are sleeping on Percival, but, you know, we'll see what happens. But I know I would sleep on Defoe. I would sleep. I'm not going to sit here and act like I knew anything. I thought he was going to be, you know, a DeShazer Everett type force. He exceeded all expectations last year. Colonial Exotics writes, as much as I'd like to say something original, Sam Howell. Nothing matters if Sam is a failure. Facts. You know, that's big facts. Metaphor Ariel writes, my biggest storyline is EB's effect on the offense. It impacts everything. So how we do at quarterback with Sam, with SH14, our O-line, and the growth of our powerful wide receivers all relies on how he takes over this offense, and hence how successful our season is. I think our D can hold their own, just need to start faster, which I'm shocked nobody brought up is as a storyline. Can we start this season off faster? And again, we won't know that until we get into the regular season, but most of these things we won't know until we get into the regular season anyway. Jose Martin writes, the biggest question is going to be in training camp is simple. Guard. Amen to that. Amen to that. All right. So that is the comment section from you guys. I want to thank everyone who participated in that. Now, I have what I like to call inside the numbers. So these are baseline statistics. And this is part one of a series that we'll probably be doing on these live streams from here until training camp starts. But these are baseline numbers that Washington needs to hit, I believe, in order to have a chance to be successful. It doesn't guarantee you anything, but it heightens and enhances your chances of being successful. These are things we haven't done well in the past that have to be improved upon if we want to be formidable in the upcoming season. So let me go through these quickly. So the first, and this is all offense. We're not talking about anything defensive tonight. We'll save that for probably 2 streams from now, because the next stream is also going to be surrounding the offense. Stream after that will be defense, and the stream after that will be defense as well. But just strictly talking offense tonight. All right. I'm wondering, should I save this or should I give y'all this tonight? I'm going to give it to y'all. So Washington's 2022 rank in chunk/explosive plays. These are plays that are 20 yards or more, right? Washington was 21st in the league in that statistical category. All right, they had 46 plays of 20 yards or more. Just to give you a framework and a reference point, the Chiefs were first in the league with 73 plays of 20 yards or more, and the Eagles were second with 63. Okay, so that just gives you a working reference point to which you can kind of gauge and say, all right, what was the best number in the league? So what is a good number for Washington in 2023? I think 57 is a good number for Washington. That would be 11 more explosive plays or chunk plays in 2023 than they had the year prior. I think it's very doable to add, even just Sam's legs and his ability to run may add in a few more explosive plays. I don't know if Sam's going to be running for 25 yards on any given snap or not, but his ability to extend plays at least should give you a chance to have a play breakdown. Sam escape the pocket, find a receiver, and that guy runs after the catch for an additional 8 yards on a 12-yard catch, and now it's a 20-yard gain. And that's something we weren't really getting out of any of the quarterbacks the last 3 years. So if you hit 57, that was good for a tie for 5th place in 2022. 57. All right. Just 11 more would have had you in the top 5 in 2022. That same 57 would have put you at 12th in 2021, which both of those numbers are good. You're top 12 in the NFL in 2021. You're top 5 in 2022 last season. So why is this important? Washington was one of 10 teams with over 1,100 plays ran on the season. Only 10 teams ran 1,100 plays or more. Washington was one of them. They ran the 4th most plays in the NFL last year at 1,140. Tampa Bay was the first. Okay, they had the most run plays last year at 1,159. So Washington was only 19 plays behind them. But only 1 of 4 was Washington. Of those 10 teams, there were only 4 of them who did not average at least 20 points per game last season. So again, why is this important? Because you can run all the damn plays you want. But if it's taking you 13 plays, 14 plays, like that marathon drive against the Browns took us 20 plays. If it's taking you that damn long because you can't get 20-yard chunk plays, everything 6 yards here, 3 here, 3rd and 1, you convert, 4 on 1st down, none on 2nd down, 3rd and 6, you pick up 6, 1st down, move the sticks. You know, that you're already into 6 plays, you're on the 7th play of a drive already, right? That's how you get caught in the vortex, because you're not skipping the vortex, because you're not skipping the 40s. You're going from, the 42 to midfield into the other team's territory, and you're picking up a 1st down at the 48, and then you're getting to the other team's 42-yard line, and your drive is stalling out. Instead of you getting a chunk play, getting you into the red zone, giving you an opportunity to have a scoring, chance. These 20-yard gains limit the opportunity for something to go awry to end your drive, okay? Chunk plays minimize opportunity for one bad play to negate an entire drive, okay? Chunk plays give you a much bigger margin of error. We didn't have enough of them. All right. We weren't good at it the year before either. All right. So why is this significant? In 2021, 11 of the top 12 teams in the league in chunk plays made the playoffs. 11 out of the top 12 teams in 20 plus or more yard gains made the playoffs. 11 out of 12. In 2022, 5 of the top 8 teams made the postseason. It matters. And we proved that last year. You can have all the plays you want. You can matriculate the ball down the field nice and slow like Usher and still not get a damn thing out of it. Chunk plays usually puts you in a position to score. Even if there's a holding penalty, even if there's a sack unnecessarily taken, you're still in scoring range. Think about it this way. You pick up that same 1st down that I just referenced at the other team's 48-yard line. And then you get a 25-yard strike down to the other team's 23-yard line. Right? I said 25, right? Down to the 23-yard line. Now you take an unnecessary sack on 3rd and, let's say 3rd and 7, you take a sack. And that drops you back to the 32-yard line. You're still in field goal range. Yeah, it's a sack. It's a negative play. He's still in field goal range. Now, that same set of downs, you get 4 on first down to get it to the 44. You get 1 on second down to get it to the 43. Now you take that same sack, you got a field goal range. Or you get a 12-yard gain, right? Put you at the 36. You get a 2-yard gain on first down. You get nothing on second down. So you're at the 34, 3rd and 8 from the 34-yard line. You take that same sack, right? Now you're back at the 46. Now you got to punt. So chunk plays make a huge difference. And here's the interesting part. Washington had big plays. We had a lot of 40-plus yard plays last year. The best in the NFL last year was the Miami Dolphins with 14. We had 10. Okay? We had 10. We were not that far behind. But you think about some of those 40-plus yard plays, some of them were touchdowns. Then you had the ones like the Jahan Dotson one against the Giants. It led to no points. Heineke fumbled probably 8 plays later, you know? So that leads me to my next statistic. Red zone conversion rate. This is big because we've struggled in this department. I thought we were actually pretty good in 2020. I didn't look up 2020, but I think we were actually pretty decent in 2020. I'm going to look it up. I felt like we were actually not that bad in 2020. We didn't get there a ton, but when we did, I felt like we cashed in. Yep, 2020 was by far and away our best under Ron Rivera to this point. We were at 58, pretty much 59% in 2020 in the red zone, almost 60%. All right, so let's get back to red zone conversion rate is my next statistic. In 2022, Washington had a 51% conversion rate in the red zone. That was good enough for 24th in the league. In 2021, Washington had a 52% conversion rate in the red zone. That was good for 26th in the league. All right, 26th in the league. In 2022, Dallas had the best red zone conversion rate at 71%. We were at 51. They had 20% points higher, 20 percentage points higher. All right, 20% higher than we were. In 2021, the Bills had the best red zone conversion rate at 66%. They were 14% higher than we were. So what is a good number? What's Washington's baseline in 2023? What's a number that is acceptable for Washington to be successful? I believe. I put it at 61%. 61% is 10% higher, a 10% increase in red zone conversion rate from last season and a 9% increase from 2021. So it's significant. 61% last year would have gotten you 9th place. So you are a top 10 red zone efficiency offense at 61% in 2022. If you're at 61%. If you're at 61% in 2021, you're tied for 13th. But let me just say this. There were 5 teams tied at 62%. So 1 percentage point higher, 5 teams lumped together. So literally you're probably at 7, if not for those 5 teams being lumped in together like that. So you're not that far behind being close to the top 5 is essentially what I'm telling you. Remember, Buffalo was at 66. So if you're at 61, you're damn near in the top 5. You're not that far behind. So 61 is a great number for me. I think that's the number. That needs to be our baseline. Why is this important? I don't have to tell you why this is important, but I'm going to tell you anyway. 23rd in the league with 35 total touchdowns. That's what Washington was last year. 23rd in the league in total touchdowns. We know the number for the points per game was 18.9, an abysmal 18.9 points a game. But I don't know if you heard that it was 35 total touchdowns, 33 of them on offense. 2 of them were on defense. 9 rushing touchdowns, 24 passing touchdowns on the season. Again, why is this important? 11 of the top 12 teams in 2022 made the playoffs in the touchdown category. So the teams that scored the most touchdowns, this is not rocket science, folks. Okay. The teams that scored the most touchdowns on the season, 11 of 12 made the playoffs. The one team that didn't make the playoffs was the Detroit Lions, who barely missed the playoffs by 1 game. And they started the season off 1-6. Something else I need to make mention of. 7 of the top 10 red zone conversion teams made the playoffs each of the last 2 seasons. If you're converting in the red zone, it means you're scoring touchdowns. If you're scoring touchdowns, it means you're winning football games. If you're winning football games, it means you're playing bonus football, something that has eluded us for far too long. So again, red zone conversion rate, huge. Which takes me to my next statistic. And I tell you guys this all the time. What do I tell you about red zone efficiency? The best red zone teams are capable of running the football in the red zone. When shit gets tight, the quarters become tight and condensed. The best teams in the league, the ones that can score, can run the ball in the red zone. And I don't give a shit how you do it. Either your quarterback's involved or he's not involved. The best teams. The reason why Washington converted at a 58% clip in 2020 was because Antonio Gibson had like 11 rush touchdowns. We ran the football very effectively. And Peyton Barber, all the touchdowns that Gibson didn't get, Peyton Barber got. We ran it very effectively in the red zone. We haven't done that in 2 years. Whether it's play calling, lack of physicality, whatever the case, we just haven't been a good rush team. Speaking of which, Washington had 9 rushing touchdowns. 9. That was 4th worst in the NFL last year. Okay? 9 rushing touchdowns. The top 4 out of 5 teams in the rush touchdowns category made the playoffs. Oh, by the way, the Lions were the one team that was in the top 5 that didn't make the playoffs. And again, I just told you the Lions were 1 game away, all right, from making the playoffs. But get a load of this. You want to win in your division, you got to be able to beat the other teams in your division at the things that they do well, just like you have to adapt and conform and adjust to the things that your teams in your division do well. Philadelphia was number 1 in the league in rush touchdowns last year with 32. Obviously, Jalen Hurts had a huge impact. Doesn't matter. 32 rush touchdowns for the Philadelphia Eagles, first in the league. You know who was second? Dallas at 24. You know who was 4th? The Giants at 21. So 3 of the 4 teams in the division are able to put the ball in the end zone via the ground. All 3 make the playoffs. It's not a coincidence. Yet we have 9 rushing touchdowns, good for 4th worst in the NFL. We missed the playoffs. What's a good number? What's a respectable number? What is a number that I can live with? What is a baseline for Washington in 2023? They have to double that total. They have to double that total from 9 to 18. Anything north of that, great. You can't have less than 18 rush touchdowns next year. We only had 13 the year before. It's not like we were much better, okay? We got to be at 18 or better next season. And I think Sam Howell's legs, we saw that against Dallas, he's going to help contribute. He's going to help that number see an uptick. But we better be able to run the ball with the backs. Brian Robinson better be at 9 or 10 by his damn self next year. Antonio Gibson should get 1 or 2 off of him busting off a run at the 12-yard line. Curtis Samuel, running one in like he had against the Texans. We better have at least 18. I don't care how we get it. We should be at 18, no questions asked. And if that number gets to 22 or 23, great. Even better. But it shouldn't be any less than 18. And with Sam Howell's legs in the red zone, I really like our chances of hitting that benchmark. If you had 18 rushing touchdowns in 2022, you were tied for 7th in the league. You're top 10 in rush touchdowns. We need to make that happen. Why is this important? You know why this is important. I just told you that 4 out of the top 5 teams in rush touchdowns made the playoffs last year. And 3 of them reside in our division. I've told you guys this. All I'm doing is repeating myself. But the best scoring offenses or the best red zone efficiency teams in the league can run the football in tight quarters. That's what it comes down to is, look, not a lot of space you're defending. I'm bringing in my big and heavies and nasties in here. I'm bringing in extra bodies, another defensive lineman, another linebacker. I'm taking corners and safeties off the field. I'm daring you to be physical. Out physical me. You want in? This thick white line right here I'm defending? Prove it. We haven't been able to move people against their will good enough. That's got to change in 2023. The next one is sacks allowed. We gave up 48 sacks last year. That was 7th worst in 2022 in the NFL. Tampa Bay, for a reference point, Tampa Bay was the best. It's Tom Brady. I get it. Still, 22 sacks is what they surrendered. That was the best in the NFL last year. 48 is way too many. Anything over 40 and you're in dangerous territory. That's excessive. It's not good enough. What is Washington's baseline? What's a good number for Washington next year? You're playing with a guy that's essentially a rookie. He may hold on to it a little bit, don't want to make a mistake. I'd rather him take a sack than throw a pick. I expect, us to get the ball out of his hands quickly, to minimize opportunities, but there are going to be some mix-ups. There are going to be some mistakes. I thought I saw this. I got confused a little bit. I didn't want to throw it into a crowd, yada, yada, yada. 36 is a good number for me. I'll allow 36. I'd like that number to be a little bit lower than that, but I'll allow 36. 36 puts you at 11th in the league last year. 11th, you're hovering around top 10 in protecting your quarterback. I'll take that. That's 12 less. With Sam's legs and an improved offensive line, I don't think 12 less sacks is much to ask. I'm banking that they'll be able to make that happen. So why is this important? Why do I really need to explain to you why it's important not to have your quarterback sacked a bunch of times? You kill drives when your quarterback gets sacked. 2nd and 8 turns into 3rd and 18 after a sack on 2nd and 8. Your drive is pretty much dead. A 3rd and 8 sack at the 30-yard line might push you out of field goal range. I just gave you a scenario in which that sack pushes you out of field goal range. We've seen that happen to Washington how many times this season? Where we're in field goal range, we take a stupid sack, and now we're out of field goal range. Sacks can be absolutely debilitating. Of the bottom 10 teams, which Washington resides at, they were 7th worst. Only 3 made the postseason last year. So if your quarterback's getting sacked a bunch, probably not getting it done. Minnesota, Giants, and Seattle were among the group of teams that were in that bottom 10, bottom third of the league in sacks given up, but still found a way to make the playoffs. Also, conversely, top 7 of 8 teams made the playoffs. So if you were among the teams that protected your quarterback, 7 of the top 8 teams at protecting their QBs made the playoffs. Again, it's pretty self-explanatory. You take care of your quarterback, you allow him the space he needs to operate, he'll do good work for you a lot of times if he's a quality starting NFL quarterback. And then finally, 3rd downs. That's the money down. Everybody knows that, right? Washington attempted 230 3rd downs last season. They were only one of 9 teams to attempt 230 or more 3rd downs last season. Only 9 teams had 230 or more 3rd downs attempted. Of those 9 teams, Washington had the 2nd fewest converted, okay? Only the Broncos were worse in terms of converting 3rd downs with that many attempts. With that said, the Chargers led the NFL in 3rd down attempts at 257. They also led the league in makes as well with 112, did the Chargers. Buffalo and Kansas City shared the title for the least amount of attempts with 193. Carolina was the worst in the NFL with 64 conversions on 3rd downs. So what does all of that mean? One, if you're a prolific offense, to hell with 3rd down. I don't need them shits. You're allowed to get a 1st down on 1st down or 2nd down. You don't have to wait till 3rd down to do that shit. And teams like Buffalo and Kansas City, it's bing, bang, boom into the end zone. I don't need 3rd down. I'm getting 1st down on 1st down. I'm getting a 1st down on 2nd down. I might have 1 or 2 3rd downs the entire drive, and I'm in the end zone. Meanwhile, Washington has to convert 4 or 5 of them just to even get into the red zone to have a chance at scoring a touchdown. This is where the chunk plays come into play, right? Those dynamic offenses aren't worried about 3rd down. They're taking care of business on 1st and 2nd down. But for the teams like the Chargers who are nickel and diming your ass, still got to convert, and they did. I don't want 257 attempts, though. I'm good. Trust me, I'm good. So what's a good attempt number? And then what's a good conversion number? So Washington converted, of their 230 3rd downs last year, they converted 81. That was good for 22nd in the NFL. All right. Not good. Not very good. Not very good. So for me, What's a good a number of attempts? We're not the Chiefs. We're not the Bills. So that 193 we're not even fooling around with that. That's not who we are. So I looked at that number and I looked at the rest of the league and I said, what's a good number for Washington if we want to be successful next year? The number I came up with was 211 third down attempts next year. 211. That would have been good for 10th in the NFL this past year, rather, in 2022. That would have been good for 10th. You would have been tied for 10th in the amount of attempts. That's a good number. How many conversions should we have out of those 211? I was looking for a good number. I said 95 is the number that resonates, that speaks to me. 95 last year would have gotten you tied for 6th. You're hovering around top 5 in conversions on third downs. Hell, if you're going to have them, you might as well convert them. So 211 attempts, 95 of them converted. That's the baseline. And I don't need to explain to you why third downs are important. It's the money down in the NFL, both offensively and defensively. So those are the numbers that I wanted to address with you tonight. We'll do this again next week. I have a different set of offensive stats that I believe are important. I'll give you what we were last year, how we can improve, and what Washington's baseline is. What is the bare minimum they can afford to do and have success? And I'll tell you why I think it's important. So let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say, and then we'll get out of here. So, Rosario Satara Poleski, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, the 32 team show idea is great. Can't wait. This has been a rough week, man. All 3 of the kids were sick this week. They've been taking turns. Thank God my wife was, school was over. She was home this week, or else it would have been an abject disaster. And I still didn't get shit done, It's just one of those times, man, where you're just like, come on, man. What can go wrong is going wrong right now. But we'll get it right. I'm not tripping. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Duncan writes, do you guys even got a quarterback, or do you guys got a super secret offensive formation no one ever seen that doesn't involve a QB? Boy, oh boy, I can't wait. Be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Ask Dallas. So you keep worrying about whether we got a quarterback or not. You'll find out. You'll soon see. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Chris, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, hey, Lou, hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise, Chris. Says, biggest storyline is how do we improve turnover differential and red zone efficiency? We are talented enough, better execution and strategic awareness are needed. Thoughts? Absolutely. Play calling is essential in the red zone because sometimes I think play callers make the shit more complicated than it needs to be. The red zone is more about matchups than it is play calls. But if you don't give your playmakers a chance to make plays, it doesn't matter if you have the matchups or not. You want to know why Terry doesn't have a huge number of touchdown grabs despite the quarterback? Because we're not getting him the football in the red zone. You think Terry can't run a slant? You think Terry can't run a pylon back at a comeback back to the pylon and have the ball thrown? Like, you don't think Terry can separate in the red zone? Yeah, right. They just haven't done a good enough job of isolating Terry and getting them one-on-one matchups. They want to run all these pick plays and bring all this traffic around and make it tough and difficult. Separate Terry, isolate him, put him out on an island by himself, one-on-one with a corner, and say, Terry, work him over, get open, and we'll get you the football. It's not difficult. We just make it difficult. We make shit harder than it needs to be. Having a mobile quarterback helps in the red zone. It does. It truly does. It adds another dimension that the defense has to account for. That's why you see the Eagles' number of rushing touchdowns, this huge uptick the last couple of seasons. You're going to see the Indianapolis Colts probably score a bunch more touchdowns in the red zone. They weren't a prolific offense scoring the football last year. That's an understatement. They were, I think, after Denver, they were the worst offense scoring the football last year. That's going to change if Anthony Richardson gets in there, especially when they get in the red zone. Sam Howell's going to have a similar impact for this offense with his legs and his ability to keep it on a read option, or even like we were doing early in the season with RPOs, right? Keeping it and then throwing the football. We had 2 touchdowns the first 2 games of the season, and I don't know if we ran RPO in the red zone the rest of the year. Like, I don't understand. Make it make sense. So I think running the football more effectively, whether that's B-Rob, Gibby, Chris Rodriguez Jr., or, is Sam Howell, Curtis Samuel, it doesn't really matter who it is. We got to be better at running the football in the red zone. EB's got to do a great job of getting playmakers the football in spots where they can, be the best versions of themselves in the red zone. You saw that in the Super Bowl. He was credited by all parties involved of drawing up that play. Those are the exact same plays, just opposite sides of the field. They actually set it up in the wrong formation on the second one, but it was the same concept. Fake like you're going in motion, come back, Eagles pass it off, guys wide open, touchdown. If EB can draw some plays like that where he's able to see some weaknesses in the defense, take full advantage of it, that's going to help us, right? That's the shit that we didn't do with Scott Turner. Get one-on-one matchups with your 6'6" tight end against a 6-foot linebacker or safety and eat that shit alive, right? Put that shit up on the top shelf. He can't get to that. That's Casamigos up there. He can't get to that. I mean, if you want the Burnett's, it's down there. Knock yourself out. I'm not drinking that shit. I don't want a headache. We got a 6'6" tight end. Why are we not throwing it to him? Like, I think those are the things that we're going to see change this year. But, we'll see. As far as the turnover differential, look, they went out and they got players that they think are going to create turnovers. They claim they're teaching turnover techniques. I don't buy it. I don't see our guys implementing them in the game. But turnovers are a mindset, man. To me, either you got dudes that are dogs that are hungry that want to eat, or you don't. Apparently, our dogs weren't starving the last couple of years. So now they went out and got dogs that are always hungry. Well, let's see if they eat or not. I'm ready to see. Nike, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. Show some love for Nike. Glad to have you aboard. Looking forward to chopping it up with you. First of all, shout out to the mob. MOBB, y'all know what it is. Stand up. We in the building. Y'all know what it is. And Nike, you now a part of the mob. You in the building as well. Welcome aboard. Look forward to chopping it up with you in the future. Welcome to the squad. Nike. LT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you who writes. Your rank for Hurts, AJ, and Terry on the top 100 players. I have no idea. I don't really put a lot of stock into that stuff, man. I'd imagine Jalen Hurts is going to be pretty high on that list. I'd say top 30, somewhere in there. The man was second in the MVP voting, so I wouldn't be shocked if he was in top 20 last year. AJ Brown will be somewhere probably in the top 65. And I think Terry will be somewhere in the top 70. That's my guess. So we'll see. Again, that stuff is irrelevant to me. Because a lot of times they're polling players, and these players have no idea a lot of times. None. So anyway. Big Money Sonny. My guy, Big Money Sonny. It feels like it's been forever. And I owe you. Hit me up, Sonny. I said that I would come to the Cherry Squad on hell is that damn app called? I can't even think of the name of the damn shit, but you know what I'm talking about. Hit me up. I need a tutorial, but I'm a man of my word. I said I would do it in June. It's June. June is running out. I got to make it happen. So hit me up so I can come in there, chop it up with y'all, see what the hell the joint is talking about. I'm about to call that thing everything but the name that it is. I was about to call it LinkedIn, all kinds of shit. I can't think of the name of the damn thing, but you know what the hell I'm talking about. Anyway, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, my guy, Big Money Sonny. Feels like it's been forever since I said that. Lou, it's been a long minute, brother. It has been. It feels like it's been an eternity. Been vacationing and loving life, man. That's great to hear, man. That's what life is all about. I love it. Blessings to the fam, brother. Likewise. Says we rocking Discord. That's the shit. Discord. There it is. We rocking with the new top 5 and we winning the chip. F that. You owe me a visit in the Discord. I do. That's what I just said. So we here. Hit me up. I'm a man of my word. I'm coming in there, checking y'all out, see what the hell y'all talk about. Let's go, Big Money says. Indeed. Big Money Sonny. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, LB still looks like a pack of smoked Newports. Next time you see him, tell him Big Money Sonny said so. I'm not fooling with you, man. I appreciate you being back in the building, though, man. It's been a long time. Glad you've been out seeing the sights, enjoying life. That's what it's all about, man. Putting in hard work, then enjoying the fruits of your labor, man. And I'd much rather you do that sooner than later. You know, enjoy it while you still can. And I'm glad to see that you had an opportunity to do that. And the summer's still young, right? Like, we just getting into summer, man. Still plenty of time for you to enjoy yourself. So I hope you're not done yet. Anyway, good to have you back. Look forward to chopping it up with you. And you know who else I haven't heard from in a long time? Our neighborhood troll, Luck. He's been absent as well. So now that you're back, Luck's got to be around the corner somewhere lurking. So I got to rev the engine back up. Mind my P's and Q's and Y's and Z's. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me. I got no more comments. I appreciate y'all chopping it up with the kid tonight. Look forward to chopping it up with y'all next week. I may leave something over the weekend for y'all. May not. If I got time, again, 3 sick kids. I'm hoping just to get 2 of them to daycare tomorrow, man. If I could do that, I'm going to have time. You know, speaking of which, haven't had time to upload anything on MusicHead University, but I will have an upload for you guys tomorrow. If you haven't already done so, and you are a music head like myself, check out the channel, MusicHead University. Become a music head. Class is always in session, and I stay dropping gems on your melon. And we're having a lot of fun over on that channel. A lot of good content. If you love the LouieTeeNetwork and you love music, I mashed the 2 together, and your end result is MusicHead University. So check that out. Got a new upload tomorrow coming your way. And so Thank all of y'all for chopping it up tonight. And I look forward to doing the same with y'all next week. I will be on live with the podcast tomorrow, barring any unforeseen circumstances. Who's to say with all the craziness that's been happening this week? I can't even say that that's a definite, but that's the hope. Anyway, I digress. Y'all get out of here. I'll see y'all next week. Some of you, I'll see you tomorrow for the podcast. And hopefully I'll be able to leave something for y'all over the weekend. If not, I'll see you next week for sure. With that said, you guys take care. Y'all know what it is. Post up. Take command. Y'all take care. God bless and good night. Yeah.
The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.